Now, podcasts. Podcast refers to digital audio or video files containing meaningful content for learning. Digital audio or video files contain meaningful content for learning. Blogs. Blog refers to personal websites that contain content organized like a journal or diary. Personal websites contain elements or contents organized like a journal or diary. Wiki. Wiki refers to open dynamic websites that collaboratively constructed knowledge, information, and resources that are freely available on the internet. Open dynamic websites with collaboratively constructed knowledge, information, resources that are freely available on the internet. Webcasting. Webcasting refers to dissemination of recorded or live content over the internet. The dissemination of recorded or live content over the internet. Now, which of the following are the characteristics of ideal evaluation of teaching learning process? So that's A, B, and C. Comprehensiveness, validity, and reliability. Subjectivity is not a characteristic of the ideal evaluation of teaching learning process. Evaluating teaching learning process can be done by comprehensiveness, validity, and reliability. Comprehensiveness. So, comprehensiveness refers to the extent to which the evaluation covers all the relevant aspects of learning process. Validity refers to the extent to which the evaluation measures what it is intended to measure. Reliability refers to the extent to which the evaluation is consistent and reproducible. Subjectivity. The ideal evaluation should be free from subjectivity, that it should be objective and impartial. It should not be partial. Now, which of the following statements are true about SWAYAM? So A, B, and D. SWAYAM is designed to achieve three cardinal principles. SWAYAM is hosting all the courses taught in classroom from class 9 to post-graduation, and it can be accessed by anyone, anytime, and at any place. And it is incorrect to say that SWAYAM assesses students continuously and grants degrees, because it does not grant degree. Now, do I need to read about SWAYAM? Does not assess students or grant degrees. Now, which of the following is related to learning-centered approach of education? Self-controlled. Learning-centered approach. Learning-centered approach of education is an approach to education that prioritizes learners' needs, interests, and experiences. Self-controlled learning is related to the learning-centered approaches of education. Self-controlled learning, engagement, involvement in the learning process. Authoritarian, a leadership style that emphasizes strict control and conformity to rules and regulations. Imposed, a decision or action that is made without consideration of others. Autocratic, a leadership style that emphasizes absolute authority and control over decision making. Now arrange the steps of project method in a sequence. Steps of project method. So BADCFE. B is the first, that is providing a situation in the project method. The second is the purpose of the project. Third is planning of the project. Then is the execution of the project. Then is the evaluation of the project. And then is the recording of the project. So providing a situation for the students to solve, which forms the basis of the project. Purpose of the project, the purpose of the project and its learning objectives to the students. Planning of the project. Students plan the project and break it down into manageable tasks with the guidance of the teacher. Execution of the project. Students work on the project, which may involve research, experimentation, or other activities. Evaluation of the project. Teacher evaluates the project based on predetermined criteria. Recording of the project. Students keep records of their progress and document their findings using various tools such as journals, reports, representations. Now, in much of social research, the variables used are non-manipulable. The variables used are non-manipulable, meaning that researcher cannot directly manipulate them as they would with other types of variables. Non-manipulable variables are often used in social research because they involve complex human behavior or attitudes that cannot be easily changed. Examples of non-manipulable behaviors include age, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status. Despite the inability to manipulate these variables directly, they can be measured and analyzed to identify patterns and relationships with other variables of interest. Now, manipulable variables. Variables can be directly manipulated or controlled by the researchers. Those are manipulable variables. Now, experimental variables. The independent variable in an experiment that is manipulated to observe its effect on the dependent variable is an experiment variable. Independent variable in an experiment that is manipulated. And deviational variables. Variables that can influence the outcome of an experiment but are not directly manipulated by the researcher. They can influence the outcome but are not directly manipulated. Now, the panel study has the issue of attrition. One issue that arises in panel studies is attrition, refers to the loss of participants from the study over time. Attrition can occur for various reasons such as death, illness, relocation, or refusal to participate in a study. Attrition can lead to biased results and affect validity and generalizability of the study. To address attrition, researchers can use various techniques such as offering incentives, improving communication with participants, follow-up calls, additional information, inanimate objects, non-living entities, or materials used in research. Single survey, a type of research design that involves collecting data from a sample of individuals only once. Inanimate objects in research, the use of non-living entities, materials as a proxy for living organisms or phenomena in a research is inanimate objects in the research. Now, if respondents are offered an option of answering a questionnaire, for example, the postal questionnaire, respondents are given an option of answering by web survey. It is called mixed mode survey. Mixed mode survey is a research design that offers respondents different options to answer questionnaire, such as completing paper-based survey or online survey. This approach can increase response rates and reduce non-response bias by providing multiple avenues for participants to respond. However, mixed mode surveys can also introduce new sources of bias such as differences in response rates or quality of data collected over different modes. Selective survey, a survey that targets a specific population or group of individuals based on certain characteristics or criteria. Optional survey, a type of survey where participants have the choice to participate or not. Multiple survey, a survey that involves collecting data from the same participants at different points in time. Now, which of the following are the disadvantages of online research? B, C, and D only. So, samples can be small and skewed. There can be an excessive turnover of communication, and technological issues may lead to inconsistencies. Online research is expensive is incorrect, and online participants are rigid is also incorrect. Now, sample can be small and skewed. There can be excessive turnover of communication. Technological issues may lead to inconsistencies. Convenience. Online research has several advantages: convenience, cost effectiveness, and large sample sizes. Now, a statement. The qualitative data analysis is governed by the codified prescriptions of qualitative data analysis. That is not correct. Qualitative data analysis is governed by the codified prescriptions of qualitative data analysis. And the second, qualitative data analysis has many approaches of which the grounded theory is important. That's correct. The qualitative data analysis differs significantly from quantitative data analysis. Okay, so it must have been okay. This was quantitative data analysis. That is again incorrect. The qualitative data analysis differs significantly from the qualitative data analysis, and its methodologies and techniques cannot be governed by the same codified prescriptions of quantitative research. Now, the second statement, qualitative data analysis has many approaches. The grounded theory is important. Grounded theory is widely used approach to qualitative data analysis that involves developing a theory from the data itself rather than testing a preconceived hypothesis. Other approaches to qualitative data analysis include content analysis, narrative analysis, and discourse analysis, among others. Now, according to the ancient Indian text, the ultimate goal of both internal and external communication is self-realization. In ancient Indian texts such as Veda, Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, the goal of communication is often described as achieving self-realization or enlightenment. Self-realization refers to the attainment of true knowledge of oneself, which in turn leads to deeper understanding of the universe and the interconnectedness of all things. In the context of communication, self-realization means the purpose of communication is not just to convey information or achieve specific goals, but to promote spiritual growth and realization. This is achieved through practices such as mindful listening, empathetic speaking, and cultivation of compassion and wisdom in communication. In ancient Indian philosophy, it is believed that ultimate goal of human life is self-realization or enlightenment, and that communication is an essential tool for achieving this goal. Thus, according to the ancient Indian text, the ultimate goal of both internal and external communication is to achieve self-realization or enlightenment. Now, according to Chanakya, communication flows from center to the power. According to Chanakya, the ancient Indian philosopher, the economist, communication flows from the center of power to the masses. It flows from the center of the power. Right? This means that communication is a top-down process where the rulers or leaders convey their messages to the people. The center of power could be government or any other authority figure that holds power in the society. This approach is also known as hierarchical communication structure. Now, looking deep into the channels of communication is described as media analysis. Looking deep into the channels of communication is described as media analysis. Media analysis involves examining the different types of media channels through which communication takes place, including print, broadcast, digital media, and analyzing the messages conveyed through these channels. It involves identifying patterns, trends, biases in the media, as well as analyzing how different audiences respond to various forms of media. Content analysis refers to analyzing the content of a message to identify patterns and themes. Audience analysis refers to examining the characteristics and needs of intended audience to tailor the message accordingly. Control analysis is not a commonly used term in communication and management, but it may refer to analyzing the extent of control or power one has over the particular communication process. And then the humanistic approach to communication posits that A, C, and D. Humanistic approach to communication posits that behavior is innate, posits that behavioral changes originate from the inner self, and posit that the reward punishment technique for behavioral change is short lived. That's the humanistic approach to communication. Behavior is concocted is not correct. And communication techniques focus only on paralinguistic messages for behavioral change is also not correct. The humanistic approach to communication emphasizes the role of individual agency, self awareness, and self expression in the communication process, posits that communication is not just about transmission of information or shaping of behavior through reward and punishment, but also about the expression of personal needs and desires, the development of self esteem, and the creation of meaningful relationships with others. Behavior is innate. The humanistic approach to communication posits that behavior is innate, meaning that individuals have an inherent capacity for growth and development. Human beings are not simply the sum of their experiences or the products of their environment. Instead, they have an internal drive to realize their full potential, which is known as self actualization. Now, behavioral changes originate from the inner self. The humanistic approach to communication posits that behavioral changes originate from the inner self rather than being imposed from external sources. Now, according to this approach, individuals have an inherent capacity for growth and development, and change comes from within as individuals strive to realize their full potential and become their best version of themselves. The reward punishment technique for behavioral change is short lived. Posits that reward punishment technique for behavioral change is short lived, that comes from external rewards or punishments is not sustainable in the long term. Instead, true and lasting change comes from within, and as individuals strive to realize their full potential and become the best version of themselves. Behavior is concocted. This statement is not consistent with the humanistic approach to communication. Instead, the approach emphasizes that individuals have an innate capacity for growth and development, meaning that behavior is not concocted or artificially constructed. Rather, it is a natural expression of the individual's inherent capacity for growth and development. Now, the next communicative techniques focus only on the paralinguistic messages for behavioral change. This statement is not consistent with the humanistic approach to communication. While the approach does acknowledge the importance of nonverbal communication. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. What does concocted mean?
Concoct means make a dish or meal by combining various ingredients.
Or create or devise a story or a plan. So that's concoct. So behavior is concocted, meaning that behavior is devised. It is a plan. So that's not the humanistic approach of communication. Now, this statement is not consistent with the humanistic approach to communication. While the approach does acknowledge the importance of nonverbal communication, emphasizes that behavioral change comes from within and not solely from the communicative techniques that focus on paralinguistic messages. The next statement, in terms of communication, the dominant interests of a larger culture will form the image of minority audiences. In terms of communication, dominant interest of larger culture will form the image of minority audiences. Dominant interest of a large culture will form the image of minority audiences. That's a correct statement. And the medium of television is often considered as a new religion. That's also correct. The statement highlights the impact of dominant culture on the way minority groups are portrayed in media and other forms of communication. The larger culture, which is often more powerful and influential, tends to shape the narrative around the minority groups based on their interests and perceptions. This can lead to stereotyping, bias, and misrepresentation of the minority groups in communication channels. For example, in India, the dominant culture of Hindi-speaking North tends to portray the culture and traditions of the South Indian states in a stereotypical and reductive manner based on their own limited knowledge and understanding of these regions. The second statement, the medium of television is often considered as a new religion. It refers to the power and influence of the television as a medium of communication in the modern society. The popularity of reality TV show like Big Boss in India has created a cult-like following, with people closely identifying with their favorite contestants and forming strong emotional bonds with them. much like the way people connect with the religious figures. Now, you really must try out to be selected in the basketball team because my uncle who teaches philosophy says that you have a real potential. What is the fallacy committed in here? Uncle says you have potential, so you should try for the basketball team. Well, if you have potential, that's the appeal to inappropriate authority. Because why so? Because it's your uncle who says that. The uncle teaches philosophy, right? Uncle teaches philosophy, and he says that you should play basketball. That's completely ununderstandable. Someone who is a philosophy teacher knows how basketball is played, right? So that's something fishy. Now, begging the question, fallacy occurs when the conclusion of an argument is assumed in the premise itself. For example, if a person argues that cheating is wrong because it's unethical without providing any additional evidence to support why cheating is unethical, in this case, the premise itself assumes that cheating is unethical, which is the same as the conclusion. Cheating is wrong because it's unethical. Cheating is unethical, and it is unethical to cheat. Okay, now, which of the following statements are so related that one of them is true and the other must be false, and vice versa? So they both cannot be true at the same time. All human beings are mortals, and no human beings are mortals. These are the two statements which cannot be true at the same time. So that's A and D. A and C. So related that if one of them is true, then the other must be false. Okay. So if all human beings are mortal, all are mortal, right? If this is true, then this has to be false. Some are not mortals. If this is true, it means that this will also be true. And if this is true, this should be false. So some humans are not mortal. Some humans are mortal, this should be true. And no human beings are mortal. So related that one of them is true. If one of them is true, the other must be false, and vice versa, and vice versa. So if this is false, it will make this to be true, and if this is true, it will make this to be false. Okay, they cannot both be true at the same time, but they can both be false at the same time. But here it says that if it is true, it should be false. But what according to this is that it can be false when it is false. So this contrary condition does not satisfy the requirements of the question, but contradictory, this satisfies the requirements. And that is the reason why you have some human beings are not mortal and all human beings are mortal, right? This can either be they can both not be true, but they can both be false. So if one of them has to be true, the other has to be false, right? And vice versa is the main condition here. So if this is false, then this must be true. But it can be false and this also can be false at the same time. So this condition of vice versa is not being satisfied in the arguments of A and E. Alright, now the next key points for what the fuck is going on? Which of the following statements are logically equivalent to the statement no plants are murderers? No plants are murderers, logically equivalent to no plants are murderers. So this is logically equivalent. Some are not murderers, and no plants are murderers. If this is true, then this would be false. This would be false, and you understand why. No plants are murderers. No murderers are plants. That would also be logically equivalent to the statement no plants are murderers, no murderers are plants. Rest all, no plants are non-murderers is not correct. All non-murderers are non-plants, which makes that murderers are plants. Murderers are plants. This is what this statement says, but here it says that no plants are murderers. So this satisfies it, and some non-murderers are not non-plants. Not non-plants, that is, they are plants. Non-murderers are plants. Let's look at the fourth sentence, because I can satisfy with this, and this. Look at the fourth. Some non-murderers are not non-plants. This statement is a double negative that is difficult to understand and does not convey a clear meaning. It is not logically equivalent to the original statement no plants are murderers.